Well, meantime, the United Nations World Food Programme said last week that it has run out of food in Gaza, and this comes almost 2 months into Israel's humanitarian blockade of the enclave. UNICEF's global spokesperson, James Elder, put up a powerful post on Instagram. There's no audio, but the message could not be louder. Take a look. And James Elder joins us now live from Geneva. Appreciate you being with us. What's been the response so far to this very powerful post, and why did you feel the need to get this message out at this time?
Yeah, Rosemary, the response is not nearly enough. We have seen in the last week some major governments, the UK, Germany, France, talking about ending this blockade. But we're 60 days in, and the reason it's so important is because we are losing more and more lives. More and more children are being killed because of this blockade. So malnutrition rates of acute malnutrition in children, Rosemary, doubled in a month. Doubled in the space of a month after amazing work being done when there was a ceasefire, when hostages were going home and when we could get food in. 90% of families with water have to choose between, do we wash or do we cook? And a lot of women are giving birth preterm because of the level of stress. And we've got dozens of incubators, Rosemary, across the border. So 60 days, the level of illegality around that is almost unprecedented. We have to be allowed to get aid into the Gaza Strip, because right now, as that post says, unfortunately, yes, the only thing children are seeing coming into Gaza are bombs and missiles.
Yeah, incredible post, and that message hopefully will be heard. So talk to us, if there is no food going in, what are people doing there on the ground in terms of feeding their children, their families?
We are now in that vicious cycle, Rosemary, of malnutrition and disease. So those two go hand in hand in a very, very dangerous way. And that is, when a child doesn't get the nutrition that they need, then they are more at risk of a disease. And disease, of course, is spreading because there's a lack of water. So people can't use the sanitation they need. Big water systems that UNICEF runs are lacking a lot of the fuel for those things. And hospitals are overflowing. You cannot take a child to a hospital in Gaza because they're malnourished or because they've got diarrhea, because the children being treated are children who've been part of bombardments. I think the critical thing here is that this is not just about principle, though principle very much so, Rosemary. Practically, like hostages, let's all be clear, we must all agree it was abhorrent that hostages were taken in Gaza. And even more so now, there are still grandmums and brothers and sisters still somewhere in the Gaza Strip. But what we've seen is that the release of hostages happens through ceasefires and negotiations. More than 140 people have been released during those times, less than 10 during military means and blockades. So children are being punished right now, and it's not doing anyone any good. As my executive director said 16 months ago, peace in the Middle East will not be gained by killing so many children in Gaza and by doing so much devastation. So, Rosemary, since World War II, UNICEF has worked on a very simple principle for the children who are downtrodden and at the wrong end of the stick. And that is, we advocate they're in a classroom, they get food, they get water, they get medical care. I've done this for 20 years. This is the first time in my career, Rosemary, that I have to begin in Gaza by advocating that children are in fact children, and then working from there. And that's why this blockade is allowed to happen. That's why people have turned away, but it's too much now. Those with power cannot turn away. We cannot see thousands upon thousands of children killed from the air, and now the very same risks of disease and malnutrition on the ground because of an aid blockade where there are people in five-star restaurants 20 kilometres away and thousands of tons of aid for Rosemary for these children and incubators for pregnant mums just across the border.
So, James, what needs to happen to get Israel to allow humanitarian supplies to get into Gaza? And why is there not more international pressure being applied to Israel to get this done?
It's a great question, and it is the question, and it's a question we've asked and the highest levels of the United Nations have pushed. And now, as I say, you have influential governments saying enough, and yet nothing has changed. And as I say, the argument should be very clear. The argument should be around not punishing children. Children cannot suffer any more in any legal sense, and at the same time getting hostages home. And that's why this is so incredibly frustrating and troubling, because ceasefires get aid in, people get a chance to breathe, children get the support they need, and hostages go home. We're not seeing that. We're seeing the exact opposite of that right now. Why that is the case? The centres of power are still not putting enough pressure to ensure hostages get home and to ensure children stop paying this horrible, horrible price for a war that they did not create.
James Elder, a powerful message to the world. Hopefully they are listening. Many thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.